Club Express, service providers for villages. A core function of villages is managing member services and providers who deliver those services. Administering service providers lets us add and edit providers and link them to the services that they provide. We can view their service history, manage their availability, and vet them in a number of different ways. We're already logged into one of our demo sites as an administrator. To manage the service providers, go to the Control Panel, click on the Services tab, scroll to the Setup section, and select Service Providers. The system supports 3 types of service providers: contractors, member volunteers, and non-member volunteers. In general, contractors are used for professional and trade services such as plumbing and electrical work and receive payment for those services. Contractors and non-member volunteers are stored in the non-member database, each in the special category created for this purpose. Each behaves slightly differently. Use the Filter and Search options, then click Search to limit the service providers shown in the grid. You can filter the list by provider type, contact name, company name, which is generally for contractors, by vetting status and visibility, and by the services that they provide. 30 providers are shown at a time, and use the page navigation buttons to move forward and backwards. The result list shows each service provider's name and company name if one was provided, its type, whether they are currently visible, the most recent date that they provided a service, their current average rating, and whether they are fully vetted. Click the service provider's name to see a small pop-up with their contact information, including address, phone numbers, email address, and website. In the Maintain column, there are several icons. We'll visit them in detail shortly. Edit lets you change contact and other information for the service provider. Services is where you link this provider to the services that he or she provides. You can view the history of services provided, including upcoming services. You can edit the provider's general availability for each day and general time ranges. You can track vettings, including background and license checks, insurance, references, etc. You can also set specific dates in which a provider is not available. For example, a college student who has exams or is out of town during breaks. Additional contacts let you add emergency and other contacts for the service provider. And there are several reports for each service provider. And if the volunteer self-sign-up function is enabled, a reset password icon is displayed. It allows admins to send a new username and password to non-member volunteers. Let's look at adding new service providers. When you click the Add New Contractor button, a form is displayed where we enter basic information about a contractor. This includes all of their contact information, some general notes, and a place where you can record discount notes or payment terms. Use the visible flag to control whether this contractor is currently active for your village. Active and visible providers can be selected for service requests. Active and not visible providers are not available to be selected for new requests, but will still be available to handle requests already scheduled. Inactive providers cannot be added to the service requests, but will appear on reports. Click Save to save the new contractor into the database and return to the main screen, or Cancel to return without saving. Many villages require members to do some volunteer work for the village as part of their commitment to being a member. When you click the Make Member a Volunteer button, a form is presented where you click the Select link to display the standard member selector. Then select the member and click Select. Click Save to add this member to the roster of volunteers and return to the main screen, or Cancel to return without saving. When you click the Add New Non-Member Volunteer button, you'll see a similar dialog box as for a contractor. When you click the Save button, the information is stored in the database but flagged as a volunteer who does not receive payment for his or her services. This is to distinguish this provider from a contractor who generally does receive payment, whether from the village or from the members. Click the Make Non-Member a Volunteer button to add as a volunteer a non-member who is already in the non-member database. You'll see a screen similar to the Member Select. However, here you select someone from the non-member database. Clicking Save configures this non-member as a volunteer. Let's look at the icons in the Maintain column. Select the Edit icon to modify the contact information for a service provider. You will see dialogues similar to the ones used to add that type of provider. Click the Services icon to specify which services each provider provides. You'll see the list of services that have been defined for your village. Check any number of services, then click Save to save your changes and return to the main screen, or Cancel to return without saving. Click the History icon to view a list of all services provided by this service provider, both past and future. The top panel shows upcoming service requests for which this provider is listed. It doesn't mean that the provider has been selected to provide this service, merely that you have added the provider to the request. The bottom panel shows past service requests listed in descending date order, including the member name and date, ratings, and comments. By default, the system only shows the past 30 days of history. Check the box to see more than 30 days. Click Done to return to the main screen. Select the Availability icon to define general days of the week and time ranges during the day when a service provider is available. This information will be used to show only providers who might be available during the requested time for a service and to exclude providers who are not available. Each column represents a day of the week. Each row represents a general time slot: morning, lunchtime, afternoon, evening, and night. For each intersection of day and time slot, you specify one of 4 availabilities. Most likely available, backup, where a provider might be available, call me if really desperate, and not available. When it comes time to find matching service providers for a request, you can define the level of availability to expand or contract the list showing who can perform the service. For example, you might start with providers who are most likely available. But if no one volunteers, you might expand the search to include backups who might be available. And if you still can't find someone and are getting desperate, you can expand again to include providers at the 3rd level. These settings will typically only apply to volunteers, both member and non-member. Contractors will typically be available at all time, though you might flag them differently for evenings and weekends. These options only control whether a provider will appear on the list of possible providers based on general ranges of availability. So if a volunteer tells you that she's available from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, enable her for both the 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and the 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. slots. She always has the option to decline the 9 a.m. request and accept the 11 a.m. request. This screen also includes shortcuts to configure a whole column at once. For example, a volunteer who is never available on Tuesdays, or a whole row at once. For example, a volunteer who is never available in the evenings, or even the whole grid by clicking in the top left corner. Click Save to save your changes and return to the main service provider screen, or Cancel to return without saving. Note that if you enable the Volunteer Self-Signup module, volunteers can update this information themselves when they log in. When you select the Vettings icon, all vettings for this provider are shown. Every service provider needs to be vetted. For contractors, you might need to check references, bonds and licenses, insurance, and criminal record. For drivers, you might also need to verify their driving record, run background checks, insurance, etc. Each type of provider will have different requirements, and each village also has different standards. For example, some require 2 background checks, and others might require 3. There are also legal requirements that differ from state to state. Some vettings expire, while others have no expiration. The system also allows you to flag a provider as fully vetted. However, it does not attempt to track this for you, since every village and state will have different laws and policies. Each village will determine its own vetting requirements for each category of service as a matter of policy. You are responsible for checking and unchecking the fully vetted option. Some vettings, such as bonds and licenses, allow you to enter an expiration date, and the system includes a report that shows expired vettings for each provider. Click the Add Service Provider Vetting button to add a new vetting. Many different types of vettings are available, and new types can be easily added. Just contact Club Express. Select a type and a date. If the vetting type has an expiration date, you'll also see a field to enter this date. Use the additional data and notes fields to enter more information. The Who Entered field comes from the list of responsible staffers. It defaults to the currently logged in user. Click Save to complete the process, or Cancel to close the dialog without saving. When viewing vettings, click the Edit icon to edit a specific vetting, or the Delete icon to remove one. You'll be prompted to confirm this action. When you believe that a service provider has been fully vetted, check the box at the top and click Apply. The system will flag this provider appropriately. You can also reverse this action by unchecking the box and clicking Apply again. An important note: Club Express does not enforce the fully vetted flag. It is advisory only, and you can still select the service provider who is not fully vetted. Because each village and state has different requirements and policies, you assume all responsibility for deciding whether a particular service provider is ready to be assigned to a service request. The vacation calendar icon is used to specify individual dates where a service provider is not available, so that he or she does not appear on the list of possible providers. Use this option, for example, if a volunteer is on vacation or a college student is in the middle of exams. Click an individual date to highlight it as not available. Click a highlighted date to clear it. Use the navigation buttons to move between months or years. You can also specify start and end dates, then click the Not Available option to highlight a larger range. Changes are saved immediately. There is no Save option. Click the Clear All Dates button to clear all not available dates for this service provider. This affects all months and years, not just the ones currently visible. Again, note that if you enable the volunteer self-sign-up module, volunteers can update this information themselves when they log in. Click Return to Previous Page to return to the service provider's screen. Select the Additional Contacts icon to enter additional contacts for a service provider. For example, you can enter an emergency contact or other people within the same contractor firm. This presents the same form as for a member's additional contact, where you specify the contact's information and relationship to the service provider. Select the Reports icon to run reports for a specific service provider. You'll see the standard Club Express Reports dialog, allowing you to select the report, specify filtering options if appropriate, and output the report in one of 5 formats. Finally, if you have enabled the Volunteer Self-Sign-Up module, a special icon will appear for all non-member volunteers. It allows you to generate and email a username and password for this non-member. These credentials allow them to log in on a special screen to access the Volunteer Self-Sign-Up module only. So now you've seen how to add and administer service providers. Please review our companion videos highlighting how to use Club Express for Villages features. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.